Welcome to Licensed Poetics, a podcast where aspiring writers talk about books. I'm your host, Derek.
And I'm your host, Fang Ling.
And in this episode, we'll be talking about Patti Smith's memoir.
Memoir, yeah, I think that's what it's marketed as.
Yeah. Memoir, Just Kids, about her relationship with famous photographer Robert Mapplethorpe.
And in this episode, it's just going to be the two of us. We don't have a guest today. And I was just saying to Derek if he noticed I coordinated my outfit today to the book.
I didn't realize. I was like she wears so many outfits in the book, like that she talks about in detail.
Oh, that is true. That is true. So specifically, not Patti herself, but Robert, he wears something called a dungaree. And I had to look this up, but all the images I'm seeing seems to show that the dungaree is a type of overall. And for those of you watching clips on Instagram of this episode, you'll see that I'm wearing my favorite overall. I feel like my outfit change correlates to a recent life change.
What's that life change?
I'm going to have to get into that when we ask the question of did we finish the book, Derek. I'm going to have to save it.
Okay.
In this episode, the listener will hear why we picked this book, Just Kids, a synopsis of the book, what the book is about, if we liked it, and we're also going to do our usual XYZ question, and we're going to react to some Goodreads reviews at the end. And also, because this book is a memoir, I don't think it's as important to separate the spoiler and spoiler-free.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's a memoir. But we'll try to keep that in mind and start with the overview first before we jump into the detail.
Everybody who doesn't know by now, Patti Smith is a writer, performer, and a visual artist. And in the 1970s, she gained recognition for essentially merging rock, poetry, and I think she was So in 2007, she was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Her seminal album, Horses, which was the cover famously photographed by Robert, who we've been talking about, and has been hailed as one of the top 100 albums of all time. She's also written a number of books, including M Train, Wit, Babel, Wool Gathering, The Coral Sea, and Auguries of Innocence. Her memoir, Just Kids, won a National Book Award, and she remains an active and celebrated artist. As for her muse, Robert Mapplethorpe, a highly influential American photographer known for his striking black and white images. He had a diverse range of subjects, including celebrity portraits, nudes, self-portraits, still lifes, and he was particularly he gained notoriety for exploring homoerotic themes and the BDSM subculture in New York City. His technically masterful and often provocative work sparked considerable controversy, yet he remains a significant figure in late 20th century photography, celebrated for formal elegance and unflinching gaze. Wow, geez. Gemini did real work.
Yeah. And I think for context of their relationship is that they met when they were 22 or 21. And they turned 23 together. I remember that from the book. And Robert died tragically young. I think he died at 42 years old due to complications of HIV. And whereas Patti Smith is still alive today, right?
Yeah, I think so. Well, yeah, she is. What did I say? I think so. She's touring in November. I missed out on tickets.
Oh my God.
I'm kind of mad about it.
The first thing is, why did we pick this book?
Yeah, I think this one was my suggestion, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it just came out of the conversation we were having about music, because we were talking about music somewhat recently, and how we love like books that talk about music, and we were talking about musicians, and then both you and me had the ill-conceived idea of writing a fictional memoir. Just not a good form, like for most
Wow.
writing. And I don't know about you, but I have kind of left that piece of writing behind for the moment.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I think I might come back to it, but I don't know.
I love that that conversation, to be honest. What a fond memory. And that was captured on LP as well,
I
actually.
know.
Yeah. I don't know how long you spent trying the fictional memoir whole, but like I spent like months.
Okay, yeah, no, I
on
didn't. I didn't
mine.
commit like that. I only had a couple of. I still believe that you can do it, but actually, we'll talk about this more when we talk about this book. But I now know that a fictional memoir has to be so heavy and so dense for it to be of any value.
Do you mean the memoir form itself has to be
Yes,
dense?
because otherwise it doesn't
Yeah.
work. Um,
Oh my God, yes. That is a huge thing about this book, Just
oh
Kids.
man.
Great point. Love
So
it.
that'll be something I guess we'll get into later.
Yeah,
We were just excited
definitely.
about music. We were talking about music a lot.
100%.
And
And this book is not a fictional memoir. We should make that
no,
clear. It's a real memoir. And the reason we say it's very dense is because the language is full of detail, which I will get into as well. I think because you said it to me as a musician's memoir, which it is, I had like a completely misaligned expectation for this book for what it actually is.
right.
I don't know why, because I never really listened to Patti Smith's music.
Oh, okay.
I just
That's
knew
why.
that I just knew that she was a very esteemed rock punk musician. And so for some reason, I was expecting a celebrity memoir, but more artsy. But then, like, from the very first paragraph, I was like, wait a minute. This is not a celebrity memoir. If anything, she should be known as a writer who is also a musician.
Yeah.
Because this is the writing of an artist.
I kind of knew because I'd listened to a little bit of Patti Smith. Like I'd only really heard Horses.
Okay,
But
that's the album.
yeah, like her kind of debut album, and I was a big fan of like some of her songs. And so I kind of knew what I was getting into, and I figured like, oh well, if there's gonna be, like if you're gonna do a musician's memoir, you don't want to read some person who doesn't know how to write, who has to get a ghostwriter and the whole thing. Like
I think this is one of the first like proper memoirs that I ever read.
Same here. Yeah.
I can't even remember. Oh, I think my most recent attempt at a memoir would have been at a really popular book that our listeners will have heard of. I'm Glad My Mom Died.
Oh, the Jeanette
by
McCurdy one?
Yeah, Jeanette McCurdy. Nickelodeon star, apparently.
iCarly went off, bro. Yeah.
I didn't grow up watching that, so I don't know. But that book was really popular. I'm Glad My Mom Died. And I couldn't get into it at all. I quit maybe less than 100 pages. And I think that's an example of a more tell my life story because I'm a celebrity type memoir. Although maybe I'm doing that book a disservice because it deals with some heavy subjects. But my gut feeling is just I didn't like it. Not nearly as much as Just Kids.
It's really just about the artistic merit. Like it's got nothing to do with like in order to be into Jeanette McCurdy's book, and even like I didn't bother to pick it up or read it, but I think I would have enjoyed it more than you because I like grew up with iCarly, so I know the person.
Yeah, that's right.
I know about the whole like.
Yeah. I was completely ignorant of her name until I picked up that book.
Yeah.
So it's not really about it's not really even about what the life is or what the person is famous for. It's about how you write in the medium. Yeah, cool. We have some writerly discussion already this early in the episode. So good.
Yeah. So the next question is, as usual, did you finish it? Was it easy to finish? Which I guess we've never asked that question before, but it does apply to this book.
Oh, I think my answer is going to be really different to yours. I think my answers are going to be opposite to yours.
Okay, that's interesting. So let's hear yours first.
Okay, so did I finish? The answer is no. I was up until 2 a.m. last night reading it. For context, it's 7 a.m. right now in Australia. And I made to about just past 50%. I'm so sorry. I just made it past 50%. And I feel like I am sitting in the corner of shame right now. But I feel like it's time to bring up the life change in order to justify my not finishing this book. I've just been like kind of realigning my priorities in life recently. I've learned to prioritize certain areas of my life, areas that I have sort of neglected. And I found that the result of prioritizing those areas has been that I have less time for reading.
Is it like cleaning your house?
No. Why would that be your guess? Wait, is that a backhanded, like, do you think my apartment is not clean?
No. I think like
Derek has been to my apartment.
I find that like when you prioritize taking care of yourself, like your creative pursuits or like the time that you spend doing other stuff is like you lose at the first. But then also you'll like feel mentally better and you're like, all right, fine.
Yeah, like I guess I'll just be happy.
Yeah, that's exactly that.
I guess I'll just be happy instead of creative. Yeah. In a roundabout way, I think that is what I'm doing. So I'm just to be fully open and honest. So I'm in a committed long-term relationship.
Sorry, guys.
And I feel
sorry to disappoint. But Fengling is very happy and taken. You guys, you can't stand a chance.
Oh my God. But like I'm literally about to say the struggle of that. So like I've neglected my own social life a little bit as the result of being in a long-term relationship. I'm sure other people, especially other women out there, will relate. For whatever reason, I see this more common with women where they just lose their own social life. And the result of that is that their partners have more support around them than they do. So that like they end up becoming more reliant on their partner than their partner is of them. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I mean, from personal experience, I felt that as well. Like I'm very
Oh, really?
prone to it.
You felt that?
And a lot of my friends are also prone to it, men and women. Like,
do you mean you're prone to like taking over your partner's life or you joining their life?
Like you just forget that you have your own, like that you should have your own life with your own friends. Sometimes it's really easy to forget that.
That's right. So I've just been trying to build up more my social life. And I want to clarify, it's not that like I didn't have friends or anything. It's just I want to up their priority level in my life. So I've been focusing on that. And you know what? They take up a lot of time and energy. But, you know, as a result, of course, I'm happier and I feel like I have more support.
Do you ever get mad
and it's
about it?
better for my relationship too.
Do you ever get mad about it though? Do you ever get mad that like you're like, is this all that it is? Like I didn't need to create, I just needed to have friends. Screw this. I'm so angry.
Yes.
That was my feeling when I started doing stuff like that.
Yes. And that's why I feel a little bit bad because even though I missed out on reading and writing a bit, I didn't feel the terrible need for it, if you know what I mean, because I'm so busy doing other stuff. So like, is this like what it takes? Should I just like be miserable and then I'll like create more? I feel like that's exactly what Robert is doing in Just Kids. If I end up doing that, it will mean I read the book having learned nothing.
Well, you have an excuse. You only read half of it, so.
Anyway, that's my very roundabout way of trying to justify why I didn't finish the book. I hope the listener will forgive me. And I will definitely finish it though, because I think you can already tell I really loved the 51% that I did read. And I did not find it difficult to read at all. Every time I picked it up, I loved it. All right, what's yours?
I did find it hard to read.
Oh my God.
It was kind of like a real, not like a slog. Like it wasn't unpleasant to read at all. I really liked reading it, but it also like took a lot out of me every time I read it.
Oh my God.
And I don't know. And it was not, I actually haven't finished it. I think I'm like 30 pages short of the end.
Okay.
But man, it really made me reflect on like the weight of my life and what little of my life I've lived compared to some of these people. The stuff that people go through. It's so funny because like was Ocean Vuong's book, was that like a memoir?
Oh yeah. I was thinking about bringing that up
because I was thinking like that book is like another example of I guess like a memoir I tried to read, I couldn't get into it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like, I'm not saying that he didn't have a struggle or whatever, but I just couldn't care about his struggle at all. But I
Exactly.
really I lived through this. And you could
I know.
not just Patty's perspective, but also like her perception of
Mm.
like how Robert was living his life.
Mm.
I mean, man, at some points it's really like tough. You're like,
Harrowing.
you can feel the weight of someone's life in this book.
Oh my God.
And
Yeah,
I've not
100%.
really felt that with a lot of stuff. And that's what made me realize like the memoir format, if you don't have a really solid story, like who would care, right? Like
Exactly. How do you make someone care about a memoir? Like Ocean Vuong failed that spectacularly. And reading just kids, I think is a function of technique and also obviously talent and
I
everything.
know I mean to some degree, yeah, I think it's about content. The life is just different. Like at no point does Ocean Vuong like meet Jimi Hendrix on the stairs of the place that she's living in. That just doesn't happen. Like,
Yes, I agree. It's about the content. I mean, it doesn't
yeah.
hurt that Patty and Robert were living like the artist life
Oh
in
yeah,
New
it
York.
was.
Like, it was such like indulgence in that area, and yet it wasn't indulgent
Oh, it
in an
was
annoying way at all.
no. Yeah.
It was so vivid. I loved
We have
it.
talked about this so much before we've even talked about the book. I
Fi-
feel like we should get into the synopsis. Do you want to
Yes,
read
I
the
think we
synopsis?
should. Yes. Again, by way of Gemini, I know Derek has a issue with us using AI synopses. But like, okay, my reason is that it's a lot of work to write a synopsis, and I don't want to do the work.
I mean, it's fair. Take care of your mental health. Be happy.
Yeah, I'm choosing to be happy. And like, genuinely though, is a lot. Guys, if you've ever read a book, try writing a synopsis for it. It's actually a lot of work, and you can easily do it injustice. So I'd rather just like outsource it to Gemini and have Gemini take the blame.
Yeah.
Okay, so Just Kids is Patti Smith's evocative memoir about her intense relationship with photographer Robert Mapplethorpe in New York City's vibrant art scene of the late 60s and 70s. The book vividly portrays their early connection as struggling young artists, their romantic bond, and their enduring friendship as they navigated bohemian life and pursued their creative ambitions. Smith beautifully captures their mutual support, artistic growth, and the influential figures they encountered, ultimately offering a tender tribute to Mapplethorpe and their shared journey.
That's exactly what the book is.
Yeah, I think this is a very neutral synopsis. Yeah, I feel like something it did miss out though is that an important part of it is I think Patty and Robert met when Patty moved to New York wanting to be a poet. And Robert was always making visual art, I think.
Yeah.
And then they started out as lovers, but then Robert started sort of discovering himself and his sexuality more. And well, I didn't finish the second half of the book. But then Patty, at the same time, was trying to her musician side was also being slowly discovered. So she didn't start out as wanting to be a musician at all. She wanted to be a poet.
Yeah. I think that's really the interesting, like that's kind of the thing that it's weird to describe someone's life as having a gimmick or a hook, but that's really the thing, right? Because most people who know Patti Smith, they know her as like singer songwriter. And so me reading it, I was learning about all these things about her life that I didn't know about at all. In the background, you have this like through line. You're kind of waiting for all the musical stuff to happen. And that's like a big draw of the book. And I think it's a really clever way. And look, it's hard because when it's a memoir, you're like, how much of this is art and how much of this is just the way they perceive their own life, right? Like she sees herself as a person before a musician. Like that's like maybe that's what it is, or maybe like that's a artistic
it's
choice.
intentional.
It's hard to tell.
Wow, that's great. Do you think when she wrote the memoir, she was already established as a musician and she's writing kind of against people's expectations?
I mean,
that
this
way?
was written in like 2010, wasn't it?
Oh, okay.
It was written.
If so,
we can check it, but for some reason I think that it was written after Robert died.
Oh yeah, yeah, I think that's true as well.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
wrote it as a tribute to him, right? Like a
Yeah, yeah.
promise that they shared. Oh, so beautiful. But yeah, I think it's one of those things where the technique is so good that it approximates the truth very well. Like it's true that she moved to New York to be a poet, and like yeah, like most people will be waiting for that musician side. I was waiting for that musician side, which served as a like a brilliant arc and a hook in the writing. And then when I tell you, like even in the beginning, when like her future musician connections in life started to show through, I was like so hooked. I was like,
You
wow,
eat it
I
up,
cannot
right?
wait to see where this is going. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Just briefly, the structure of the book, it's kind of separated into 6 chapters or 6 essays. Each of them is quite long, and I think I'm up to maybe 3 or 4 at the moment.
mm, mm,
Yeah, a significant one is called Hotel Chelsea, which is chapter 4. And that's like, just imagine one of those artist hub places in the late 60s in New York City. And that is Hotel Chelsea, where no one can really afford their room. And everyone in all those rooms is a struggling artist. And when you sit in the lobby, sometimes you make amazing connections with people just walking by. Like the manager of Bob Dylan.
oh yeah, Bobby
And
Newworth.
yeah, Jimi Hendrix, as you said, they kept trying to get into Andy Warhol's inner circle. Who else? Jack Kerouac, some people who knew Jack Kerouac. Allen Ginsberg, who was a personal friend to Patti Smith.
How good is that bit? There's like that, like the bit where she's like hanging out with like Allen Ginsberg
Oh yeah.
at the diner, and she doesn't know how to eat like lobster. And she was like, oh, why did you pick me? He's like, oh, I thought you were like a very pretty boy. And she was like, oh.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then she felt bad, so she was like, well, I'm gonna leave now. And he's like, ah, it's fine. Like, guys, can
I
you imagine
didn't
getting
know.
picked up by one of your like heroes? That's insane.
Thinking that, like him thinking you're a guy too.
Yeah, to be like, oh, I was trying to hook up with you. But hey,
Oh my
here, just have
God.
dinner and we'll chat. What?
I didn't
Crazy.
know Allen Ginsberg was gay, actually. I didn't know that.
Like,
Yeah.
now I've got in my head like everybody
Mm.
in the 60s was each other in New York City. Like that's just kind of how I imagine it now.
I'm sure they were. Does
Yeah,
this book
so
make you want to move to New York?
it's just, I mean, I don't know that I would feel that way now. Like it's like a different sort of, it was the 60s,
Mm.
right? It's the summer of love. Like it was that Woodstock, like, yeah, this is like the Beatles. This like
Yeah, yeah.
the
That's
musical stuff is crazy. There's a couple of things I really
Mm.
appreciate about the book. I mean, there's a
Mm.
lot. I mean, I appreciate the whole book, but
Mm. Mm.
even though like a lot of it is very heavy subject matter, I love how the book is like, it really holds your attention quite easily because Patti Smith has a lot of asides and she's like constantly referencing stuff. She's like, oh my God, it was like
Yeah,
Rimbaud.
constantly.
Or like that, oh, like, and they had like a
Constantly.
Tom Verlaine like thing with like,
Jean Genet
yeah, Jean
all the
Genet.
time.
Like, and she was like, oh, like and she's so honest and vulnerable about it. She's not like acting cool.
Mm.
Like she was like, oh, I didn't really understand. I understood intellectually what like homosexuality
Oh
was,
no,
and like
yeah.
but I didn't understand how it like in real people and stuff like that.
How it would have functioned. Yeah, yeah.
And it was like she's so honest about all that sort of stuff. She's
I
like, oh, I
know.
didn't really like I wasn't really a drug taker, to be honest with you. Like she's so I don't know, it feels so genuine and so honest.
I know. That is exactly what Ocean Vuong did not have. Like with all the flowery thing, it just felt like he's hiding behind a veil. Whereas Patty is just like so honest. And she like I know she knew how to balance the honesty about her life with like her observation of Robert. And then it's just like this 2-step pacing almost that like compels you to move
Yeah.
to read on.
And it had the sort of like beautiful elegance of like talking about something that was not her directly. Whenever it talked about her, it was just references, music, art, films. Like it was just like there's a line actually toward the end of the book where she says like, "Oh, I was just full of references," and it was so great to be like, yeah, like you like she loved. Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, it was. She's very much a lit nerd in that era.
Yeah, 100%. Super wanky. Should we talk about who we would recommend this book to?
Yes.
Maybe you should start.
I think if you're looking for a celebrity memoir, like if you want to read about the behind the scenes of the gossip or whatever, because I'm sure their life would have generated gossip in the public sphere, although I'm not really like well versed on that, you might be a bit disappointed. You might be like, I didn't sign up to read all these literary references. So
who's Dylan Thomas?
Maybe
yeah.
Maybe adjust your expectations if you're looking for a celebrity memoir. But if you're interested in what we were, like, writing that intensely relates to music, a beautiful, like, observer type writing, kind of like Breakfast at Tiffany's, except that's fiction, of course. It's like that angle of lovingly observing someone intimately and a dynamic between two person. If you're interested in that, you'll love it. And another book that you may have heard of is The Flamethrowers by Rachel Kushner. It's one of those like art books that John Green and Sarah Uris Green recommended in one of their live streams. Both of them had like glowing things to say about it. And I read it like a few years ago. And it was such a terrible reading experience for me. Because like as an art book, I guess it was very readable, but as just general fiction, like I struggled through it so much.
It wasn't good, yeah.
And because that book is about the art scene in New York, I think in the 80s. So not quite the same as Just Kids, but that book was like very far up its own ass, to use your phrase that you said. But I suppose I was glad I finished it, and I did make me think deeply about like what's the role of art in society, the role of the artist in society, and like what it takes to be an artist. And I think if you're interested in those questions, maybe read Just Kids instead of The Flamethrowers, because I think it's about roughly those same themes, except it's like 100 times more readable, more endearing, and more comfortable to read. Yeah, if you're interested in that, like, like what it takes to be an artist, gosh, like I know what you feel though. Like you said, like you think you're not living enough of your own life. Like when I read this book, I sometimes feel like that as well. Like I don't feel like I'm qualified to call myself an artist or even aspiring artist. And it's not just like I'm not living in squalor. As you can tell from my background, I'm not living in squalor. But it's just like this dedication. And I'm like,
and she's living so hard. She's living so intensely. Like, or at least the way that it's represented. Like before we go on, I just had a thought. Breakfast at Tiffany's was a gay guy, right, writing about a straight woman. This is a straight woman writing about a gay guy that she's in love with. It's just anyway, so if you want to, we would recommend, if you want the opposite of Breakfast at Tiffany's, or the flip side, I guess, maybe not the opposite, but like the reverse.
Not the opposite. The
if
same.
the reverse of it is, I mean, there you go. So, and it really is like what Breakfast at Tiffany's is in real life, I guess. Kind of, right? Anyway, great book. Anyway. I highly recommend it to like basically anyone who's interested in music and art around that like kind of late 60s, 70s. There's a lot of name drops. You will love those. I did. I mean, I was reading it.
So many names.
I was reading it like, and anytime a name came up that I didn't know, I was Googling that name immediately.
Wow. Yeah. I love that.
Because it's just like, oh, like, who's this? And you're like, because the whole thing about like, the one about Bobby Newworth, you're like, who the hell's that? You Google it and you're like, oh, like he like.
I Googled that one too.
I was like, oh, cool. And then I'm like listening to Bob Dylan and like if you want to like live in the world of the book, like this is a book that lets you do that really easily. Like you're like suddenly you're like listening to like Patti Smith's music discography You're trying
I
to
did that as
imagine what
well.
it would have been like to like, because of the story, I was totally absorbed and like,
Yeah, wow. And that's the weird thing. Like I did Google some names and some music, but like for a lot, I didn't. But even when I don't know the names, I still love the atmosphere that it created.
yeah, that's it. That's it. 100%. Because it's like,
I love
because the
it.
names aren't like, oh, like you don't have to know to really know. Like the writing is
Mm.
good enough that like I've never read anything by Janae, um, but it's
I
written well
haven't
enough
either,
to
but I
know the
did Google
vibe.
him. Yeah. And then the fact that, she's drawing on art to make sense of her experience, that's deeply moving to me.
Um,
Although I will say later on when we react to some of the Goodreads reviews, some people will be complaining about this.
well, that's because those people have no soul. I think also a lot of famous musicians love this book. That's like another thing.
Mm.
I can
They
like
should.
it's
They
really
should.
popular. I know like Machine Gun Kelly is not a great
I don't
one
know who that is.
example. He's just like a rapper who is now doing pop punk
Okay.
music. I don't know. But Taylor
Okay.
Swift, like, in her like, was it her recent album, Tortured Poets Department? There's a line from that song that goes, "You're not Dylan Thomas, I'm not Patti Smith. This ain't the Chelsea Hotel." And
Oh,
so I didn't know what the Chelsea Hotel was, but when I was reading this book, I was like,
until
and then
this.
I looked it up, and I was, oh, I guess she's read Just Kidding.
Tay Tay's lyric.
Yeah,
Tay Tay's lyrics make sense
that album
now.
sucked, but
Wow.
the
Is there a good song in that album?
there's a couple of good songs. I mean, I can send them to you if you want.
Okay.
But so, do you want to get into the XYZ question?
Yeah, I think we can. I think it might allow us to talk about a few more things that we haven't covered yet.
So the XYZ question, it's one that we do a lot now. What the format goes, this book is very insert adjective, I guess, and the top most,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that adjective is, things are, and then we kind of list it. So
Yep.
I was, I know this is like a good question, but I never have a good answer for it.
Well, the beauty of it is in the flexibility. Like you can be as specific or as vague as you want. I'm also looking at my notes and wondering what my XYZ will be.
There's like a couple of lines from it that I identified.
This book is very identifiable.
Oh, this book is very performative reading, like, worthy. Oh, I think the XYZ question, I mean, this book is very artsy. Probably is like, that's
Okay.
the most, like, if you just look
Very
at
accurate.
if you just look at the cover, and you like, one of the greatest things about it is that there's a bunch of photographs that he takes of Patty of in the book. You have the Kindle version.
I don't have it. I have
You
it
don't
on
have any of
Kindle.
the
What the
pictures?
No.
So like, I can show you. I mean, people won't see this.
Oh
But
my God.
there's like a
You know what?
great
I'm running to my library. I'm running to
So-
my library to get a
So
copy.
this is the famous cover from
Oh,
from Horses, and
of course.
towards the
yeah.
end of the book, like, she talks about recording horses, and then
Oh.
she remembers about like the photo shoot, and there's a great line here that says, like, he basically took 12 pictures of her,
Uh-huh.
and then he showed the contact sheet to her, and then he pointed out that photo that was going to become the one for Horses, and he goes, "This one has the magic," he said. "When I look at it now, I never see me, I see us."
Oh.
Glorious.
Kill me. Kill me now. That's
Glorious.
so.
And
Oh,
like,
of course.
she also just talks in the language that I understand. She says like,
Oh.
"Oh, I flung my jacket over my shoulder, Frank Sinatra style." Like, one of those things that I'm like, I love about musicians is that musicians are obsessed with cool, like the
Yeah.
currency of coolness. To me, it's like super
A
important.
lot of us are.
Yeah, but like, I think a lot of musicians are unashamed about it.
Okay.
Like, I was watching like interviews with like Noel Gallagher, right? And he like talks about how like he only plays open chords.
Oasis.
Yeah, from Oasis. And he was like, "Oh, I only play open chords." It's like, why? It's like, because you're supposed to make it look easy. The kids are supposed to see you on stage see that you are not even breaking a sweat. You are just relaxed and you are singing and it looks great. That's 80% of what it is. And like all of this obsession with artifice, like, oh, where you hold your guitar matters. You go too high,
Oh yeah.
not
Wow.
getting any girls. Too low, you're getting goth girls. They're in the middle. That's the gunslinger. He has this like great quote. Look, it's a
Oh,
bit chauvinistic. It's a bit nonsensical, but like the
I
root of
like it.
I'm a big fan of like bravado, and I like she's got like this unashamed like bravado that you can see is like the backbone of being a rock and roll sort of like
And the artist.
artist.
Wow.
Awesome.
That is so great. And I think, yeah, they would be obsessed with cool because their work is so performative. You know, like their art form is conveyed through
Yeah.
present live, real life performance. So of course you have to think about
Yeah.
how you present and stuff.
Yeah. And I've realized like I think the more that I write and the more that I whatever. Like cool has more value to me than like meaning. Like
Oh my God.
yeah, like a lot of like art is like a lot of people like, oh, this means so many things to me. It's like it's all nonsense. Like what you like sometimes what you want is you want it to like be kind of effortless. You want it to be cool. You want it to be like, and that'll inspire more people than like doing something that's like really self-indulgent and up its own ass. Like sometimes cool is
Wow.
important. There's like a real value to cool.
100%. And I think I loved it. And I'm surprised. Normally, I'm not a super emotional or sentimental person. But then the way that this book delivered it, I'm like, oh, I regret my own cynicism.
Yeah.
I'm like, I should be allowing myself to feel more and to be cringe. And like, because ultimately, being able to honestly do that is actually the cool thing. And like, this book like made me think about that.
Yeah. Like I think I already talked about it, but all the literary references. Like this is a woman who learnt her life through books and reading and like music and like art. Like her whole life, her whole language is determined through self-referential stuff. And that made me feel really seen because people will be like, "Oh, Derek, you like, not everything is a community episode. Not everything is a meh, 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 meh." It's like,
I
yeah,
say
but
that
it
too
is
sometimes.
actually like everything
It is,
is. Everyone has lived before you. None of the feelings you have in you, like we live in this like.
You know what? I think you're even more committed to this life than she is because like I can see you in real life and you're actually living like this. But she's only living this way in the memoir that she's choosing to write.
It's funny because even though I say the XYZ thing, whatever, the opposite is also true. It's also super grounded. Some of these anecdotes are crazy. Do you remember the one where, oh, maybe I don't know if you've reached it yet. There's a bit where she's like talking to, and it's great. Maybe because I like episodic stuff. Her life is so episodic. It's like every little thing is its own adventure. She has this one thing where she's like, because they're poor throughout so much of the book, right? There's this one bit where she's going to meet someone that she's like got a crush on and in love with. I guess to be clear, so at a certain, she and Robert commit to each other, for whatever reason, and then obviously he comes out as like gay, and then they decide to stay together, but they're really like friends. Like lifelong friends and partners.
Yeah. Their relationship like transcends labels.
And is also very toxic, undoubtedly. But there's a bit where I think, is it like Robert is with another guy, and then she's hanging out with this dude, whoever it was, I can't remember. And then she's hanging out with this guy named Sam or something. Or Alan. I can't remember. It was Alan from the Blue Oyster Cult, which another band. Amazing band. If you haven't heard their, give them a listen. He's hanging out with this guy, and then like they're talking, and because she's poor and she really was craving, she's like anemic, she was like craving like steak, so she steals these 2 raw steaks from like a butchery, and then she puts them in her pockets, and she's walking home, and she bumps into this guy, and they're hanging out and they're talking, and she's like, "Listen, man, I gotta be like straight with you. I actually really have to go home because I've been walking around for like an hour with these 2 raw steaks in my pocket. And I just need to go home." And that shit is
I
so
did not get to that
real.
part yet.
Yeah, that's
But
so
that's good.
real. I was like, all the stuff about like Robert's like sexuality and his struggle, it made me really feel for him as
Mm,
well. Or like the way that like she
mm,
told it, and how he's just barely like holding
mm.
on. He's just like struggling to keep it together. I really kind of hated him after a while, but I did like empathize with the, like,
We talked about this. We had a WhatsApp conversation, text trail about this, Derek,
yeah, yeah.
where we're both like, he's kind of a dick. He's
He's a
kind of
massive dick.
terrible.
He's terrible.
He
Um,
does not have anything together and he like massively relies on Patty. And then I'm just I think in ordinarily if you tell the story any other way, I would have really hated this man. But because Patty's telling of their story is so compelling that I'm so convinced by her love for him that I feel
that he must be
like I would
deserving of
love
it.
him. I didn't think about whether he was deserving, and I feel like
Oh, I
that's the
guess it
thing
doesn't
with
matter.
love, right?
Yeah,
You don't,
that's true. That
yeah, you don't think about if he like deserves or not, like because of course he does. And then I just think like Patty's love for him is the most moving part,
yeah.
and his redeeming quality actually, like her love for him. It like blew everything else out of the water. Nothing else really mattered.
He was obsessed with having money and being
Oh yeah,
powerful and high up in society. And she didn't agree with she
yeah.
didn't care about any of it, but
Mm,
she like kind of appreciated his drive to get it,
yeah,
which is I find really
yeah.
fascinating.
He was the one that's like, I want to get into Andy Warhol's inner circle, that, and I want my art to get me there. I don't want to sleep my way there, even though everyone was attracted to him.
Yeah.
So he had that pride, I guess, whereas Patty is way more practical. You know what I liked? I liked when she said she takes 10 minutes to get ready
Oh
to
yeah.
go to one of those fancy parties at the factory, like Andy Warhol's The Factory. Whereas Robert took an hour, especially if he got high, it took him even longer to pick out which
Yeah.
necklace to wear. And he would have these long conversations with one of their other
Yeah.
friends about like, okay, it's either three necklaces or
Like
nothing. One was too subtle, two said nothing, so it was either three or nothing. And then they would have this massive conversation, and then Patty would just have to like sit there and wait for them to finally get
I don't
ready.
know if you get to that point, but there's a bit where then she smokes weed for the first time, and then she tries to
Uh-huh.
get ready, and she's like, "Oh, I understood now."
So I think I should do my XYZ, whatever I have. All of the notes that I have written point me towards the word impressive. I think this book is very impressive in many ways. First of all, is what you said right at the beginning, is the wealth of detail. Sometimes literally just read a paragraph and count the number of nouns and names that she uses. It's like literal things and objects, right?
Love it.
It's such a wealth of detail. And a lot of those words are like, say like, they're big into like crafts, so it'll be like materials that they're using, stuff that they buy from the flea market, like things that you see in the streets of New York, like their possessions and whatever. It's just everything is described in like meticulous detail. And I'm just so impressed by that. And I'm like, how does she remember all of these from so many years ago? She would have been quite old when she wrote this book, and yet she's recounting those like few years in her early 20s. And I'm like, I regret not being a diary person. Like, is she relying on her diary? Is that what's happening? But I'm sure a lot of research would have gone into like
Some of it is
help
just
her
memories.
remember.
I mean, like some of this could be wrong. Like it's just vignettes, right? If I saw Jimi
What?
Hendrix on the stairs, I would remember that forever. If I got picked up by Allen Ginsberg on the street, I would remember that. Me talking to my random friend who works as a banker in like, I'm not gonna remember any of that shit.
You know what we have to do, Derek? You know what we have to do is that if we can't live the life that she's living, we're just going to have to imagine it. And so we have to use nouns and descriptive words to describe our imagination instead of our experience. I was just going to move on to the next impressive thing. is it ties into the first one, which is like I like how she references important events in the world at the time. I think from reading like Annie Ernaux and like other sort of personal essay writers, I think that's super important to really like situate your own experience in the wider context of the world. You know, she talks about the Kennedy assassination, Martin Luther King's death, and the elections, and what the Manson family murders.
Yeah.
I like the same way I love the artistic references. I also love the references to current events and how they grounded their story.
It really pulls you into that time period. You feel like you're there.
And another thing that's a technique is that obviously at the beginning of the book, the reader already knows that Robert dies young, that they didn't get to share their entire life together. They did up until his death. And I like that she brings up his death like in like very strategic moments. So that when you're reading it, even as their first meeting and when they first fell in love, their first night together, and she knows when to bring up his death in the key moments where it just hits you like a ton of bricks. Like she'll be like, he's doing this, and then yet I know that one day I will end up holding his ashes or like watching him on the sick bed. And I really love that. I think that's great writing. She's just able to effect that effortless look, that effortless feel.
Yeah, I guess that's also true.
Yeah, whether that's deliberate, I mean that hardly matters.
I was gonna say the one more the final thing that like this is my favorite thing about the whole book.
Yeah.
Or like the moment I was like, oh, I love this book. She has this great moment where she talks about seeing Jim Morrison and the Doors for the first time and her reaction.
Okay.
And I think this is like kind of relevant to like being a writer.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad you brought it up. I love to talk about that moment.
Yeah. There's a great bit where she says, I'll just read out the actual quote, but I had a strange reaction watching Jim Morrison. Everyone around me seemed transfixed, but I observed his every move in a state of cold hyper-awareness. I remember feeling much more clearly than the concert, and I felt watching Jim Morrison that I could do that. I can't say why I thought this. I had nothing in my experience that would make me think it would ever be possible. Yet I harbored that conceit. I felt both kinship and contempt for him. I could feel his self-consciousness as well as his supreme confidence. He exuded a mixture of beauty and self-loathing and mystic pain, like a West Coast Saint Sebastian. When anyone asked how the Doors were, I just said they were great. I was somewhat ashamed of how I had responded to their concert.
Fuck. That is the most relatable thing I have ever read.
That's a real, like, I mean, I think anyone who's even like wanted to like even written like fan fiction, it doesn't matter what you've written or how you've written or whatever. Like,
try to be an artist.
If you tried to like do any sort of creative pursuit, you like there was definitely a moment you were
you felt this.
That feeling was so legitimate. And if you read like the memoirs of other writers, you find this same thing expressed, I think.
Really? I don't think I think this is the first time I've seen it expressed so well.
Murakami has a thing in his like writer as vocation, like not essay.
Oh yeah, I need to read that one.
Yeah, where he basically says like one day, like he knew he could be a writer one day. He'd never written anything in his life. But one day he saw like his favorite baseball team, someone hit a home run. And as he watched the ball fly through the air, he was like, I could write a book easily. And then he wrote his first book and then he won an award for it. And I was like, you mother...
Sputnik Sweetheart.
No. The first book he wrote was Hear the Wind Sing, and it was like a novella.
Oh, okay.
And he won an award for like best up and coming writer. It was his first book. What the hell?
Up and coming. Oh, back when Murakami was still an upcoming. See, it's possible, Derek. It's possible. But like, oh my God, this incredibly conceited feeling that makes you feel ashamed of yourself, but also motivates you and gives you confidence. It's like for me, it's like when I read something, I'm like a really proud and arrogant part of myself think I can also do that, or like I should be able to do that, or like, or I even get resentful and be like, why do people make me feel like I can't do that when I know I can do it?
Yeah.
And Patty says she was ashamed. I feel ashamed when I feel that conceit too, but then like it is there and I do feel it.
But yeah, there's like these moments of like confidence anytime she talks about music, like that I am, and you know whether it's true or not, or whether you know this is embellishment, because the job of a musician is to embellish, like that you're supposed
Embellish,
to.
yeah.
I think that's part of the spirit of it.
Perform, you know?
Perform, right? But you can see it throughout the book. Like at different points in the book, she's like, and then I wrote a song and I was like, this is not like the best I could do. I can really like do it. And she was, and then you know people would tell her like, oh, you know, you should really sing. You've got a nice voice. She's like, nah. And then she like buys a guitar and she's like, she like plays the first chord and she's like, yeah. That sort of like confidence. I love that. And it's just,
wait. I want to know, that is the conceit of being an artist, you know, like, and that's the reason why when I read good writing, it pisses me off sometimes.
Yeah, I get so angry. There's like a real bitterness and resentment, right? Like you, like,
it's a mix.
Sometimes you read your friend's writing, you're like, you.
Hey, guys, listeners, Derek can write. Derek can write. I read his most recent iteration of his beach story, and it was very impressive.
What did you say? You were like, oh, it's pretty good. I don't know what was it. You and Marlene, but like, I don't know what he's talking about.
I don't know what you're trying to get at, but I can tell it's something.
But yeah, like those moments of like pure, like, quiet confidence that you keep to yourself.
Yeah. I'm still a bit ashamed of them, to be honest.
But like, do you have those moments where you're like, I'm unstoppable, I could do it? Yeah.
But it's incredibly gratifying to read Patti Smith describe it.
Yeah.
And I love that it's so early on in the book. She knows exactly what she's doing.
Do you want to get into I mean, like if I were a writer, what would I have changed about the book?
From the 51% that I've read, I think it's so like pretty much perfect that I would not change a single thing.
Like there are definitely bits that are a little boring, I think. But that's what life is supposed to look like.
I haven't found any.
Yeah, there's some bits where you're like, it's kind of. I mean, I understand people's complaints. Look, I don't know what the complaints are about.
We're gonna get into the complaints.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't think you could change anything without losing the quality of what it is. So the answer is probably like nothing.
Incredible! Don't we love it when we found a book where even like us, the two most complainy people on the earth, cannot say anything about what they would have changed.
Yeah. So highly recommend.
Oh, so good. If you're looking for something to touch your soul, touch your cold dead soul or your happy soul.
Do you think happy people would like this book?
I like it.
You've just started being.
Are we gonna get?
How about you relax, buddy?
Are we gonna get into if I'm happy or not, Derek? Bruh. No, like even with all the social things, there's still a hole. There's still a hole. Unfilled hole. I'm being so unfair on my partner and my friends right now. I'm such a terrible person.
I don't think so. I mean, like, I think like you can have you can have friends, you can have supportive family, you can have whatever, and you could still feel empty. I think that's a reasonable thing to feel. Should we get into the Goodreads reviews?
Yes,
see what the people
let's do it. Wait, but before that, can I just quickly pitch an idea? I was gonna pitch it like after recording, but I'm like, I want to get into LP. So hold on for one more minute before the Goodreads reviews, which I know all of you are waiting for. I want us to do what Patti and Robert did, which is make collage with each other or for each other.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
They would make collages and write poems and just make art for each other.
We can try, but like, does it hit the same if you're not in love? That's what I was
gonna say. I was gonna say we should involve some of our other friends as well, like Marlene, and also previous guests Kwame, if we can, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be down for
if
it.
we can. And also for us, it doesn't have to be a collage. I think for us, whatever art form that we feel, I guess, comfortable with making, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you want to try doing that?
Yeah,
I'm just so moved by that. Like, of course, they were always constantly making art, but having that additional little project to make art for each other just gave them like so much more reason to actually make shit. I just don't want to go long stretches of time without writing anything, you know? So I feel like this would help with that. I really hope this section makes it into the episode. Okay, now let's get into the Goodreads reviews. I feel like after all of our glowing reviews, we should start with a very bad review.
Sounds good.
What do you think? Okay, here I have one-star review from Goodreads. I didn't just hate this book. I cherished my hatred for this book. Luxuriated in it. Drank deeply of my hatred. How can you be so up your own ass and not like this book? Like, bruh. I didn't just find the writing clunky. I found it odd, troubled by an overfamiliar relationship with the passive voice, verbs, and prepositions. Like, why say on when you can add a syllable to get upon? Look, Patti Smith is a massive 19th century literature reader, okay? That's her style. I didn't just find Patti Smith kind of strange and off-putting in the way she explains that other people who are not as cool as she may have. I don't know what that means. I found her actively frustrating. I'm not sure if she intended as a writer for her and Mapplethorpe's pursuit of fame to sound so goddamn groupie-ish. Lots of tracking down someone who is famous and following him around.
I don't think they read this book. I don't think they finished it. Because, really? I kind of get that feeling. But I think she did intend to make it sound groupie-ish. That was the whole thing. She was mostly, a lot of it is him being a groupie and then her pouting about having to be a groupie.
What's a groupie?
A groupie is
having sex with multiple partners?
No. What
does it mean?
Being a groupie is like following around famous celebrities and trying to get in with.
I'm so glad I clarified that. Okay, so that's what
of orgy, dude.
Oh yeah. So we have clarified that groupie is not an orgy. Glad we clarified that.
Yeah. But
yeah.
All I was saying was that I think she makes it pretty clear that it is group behavior. Also, I don't think you should be I didn't just find the writing clunky. I found it odd, troubled by an overfamiliar relationship, dude. You can't be complaining. Your writing
is
troubled by an overfamiliar relationship with the past.
Exactly. I'm like, are you really the right person to be complaining about this specific issue?
But I actually think a lot of the writing is direct.
I think so, but it does have a slightly old-fashioned quality to it, don't you think?
Yeah, but she's old. She's an old person.
Yeah, precisely. I think if you only read contemporary literature, it might be a bit unfamiliar to you. Yeah. We sound like such assholes. If you only read contemporary literature like a pleb. All right. Next review?
Maybe I'll read a slightly more positive one. This is a 4-star review. This is literally the most fun you can have while reading a book that is generously 40% names. To be fair, there's some good names. This is open and edgy and poetic and one of a kind. It felt like reading the caption of a photo in a magazine. It was at least a cool magazine and a great photo, and a good photo. That's actually a really great way to put it. It is.
Yeah.
It gives the sense of if you had a bunch of Polaroids together, and then at the back of each of them, you scribbled a note about the day that you took it on. It feels very scrapbooky.
A bit like that. Yeah.
You really that sucks. You really missed out without the. There's also bits of art that she did, that either she or Robert did.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. What the I am running to the library. Don't worry. I'm running to the library.
There's a
Are you
1-star
talking about
review.
my name is Patty one?
Not so much
The last one?
Actually, not the last one. I was thinking of the 1-star review above the I didn't just hate this book.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I think you should read that one or parts of
Yeah,
that one.
I'll start with so like halfway through it says there's a 1-star review.
Mm.
She goes on and on and on about Rimboard, so much Rimboard and Baudelaire, so much
Yeah.
Baudelaire. Her sentences were also quite choppy and repetitive, that's fair. I could essentially sum it
Yeah.
up as I met a boy named Robert. We loved each other. We hadn't any money. One day, I bought a raincoat from a thrift store. I went to France and visited Rimbaud's grave and wore my raincoat, for it was raining. Robert was a genius, and we lay upon a mattress. One time, I met Jimi Hendrix. Then he died. Then I wore my raincoat out in New York, and I bumped into Ginsberg. He bought me a sandwich, for I was hungry and hadn't any money. The end.
Love it. That is the book,
actually
right?
the book. That is legitimately the book.
But like there's so much feeling. Okay, maybe because I've read the book and loved it already, but like even just that Robert was a genius and we lay upon a mattress, that line was enough to make me go, oh, a little bit hurt, a little bit hurt.
This book made me kind of uncomfortable sometimes. Especially like hearing about Robert. I mean, I think I think if people are honest, like most guys have like grappled with their sexuality one way or another. I think most people have, right? I think like you live in today's society, like you know about it. You can't just be like, I don't know. But like, and I was like, is that why? Like, do I have an uncomfortable relationship with it? And then I realized, like, actually, this guy's just kind of a dick, and I can see myself in this guy.
I was gonna say, let's get into
guy.
how you see yourself in him.
I don't know. It's just like it's so like insular, and like when he's depressed, he just spirals in on himself, and it's just the worst.
And on
it's
other people around him.
You should just grow the f- up some of it. Well, now that we are physically and mentally exhausted, it's a good time to wrap up today's episode. If you'd like to support LP, head to buymeacoffee.com/licensed poetics. Thank you all so much for listening. I'm your host, Derek.
And I'm your host, Fan Ling.
And we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye.
Oh, yeah, bye.